This is going to be a great conversation because I can't wait to see what I feel real old sitting in this room now. In terms of, we're just going to call it priorities, and what you think the city of Detroit needs to do with the next round of leadership, whoever it is, doesn't matter who is elected. I'm curious, and I'm going to start with you, Dana. What do you think should be some top priorities for the city of Detroit?
Yeah, thank you for that question. Priorities need to be the education in the state of schools. Right now, 80% of the charter schools in the state of Michigan exist in the city of Detroit. They have no authorization. There's no, they open and close right before students are about to graduate. I think we really need to hone in on history and also look forward to the future of where we want to see ourselves and our babies be educated. And I think we need that starts with like retaining the current talent that is in the city of Detroit, that comes from Detroit. We know that genius comes from Detroit, right? There are Pulitzer Prize winners, there are Nobel Prize winners who were born educated in this city. And I think we just need to harness our talent and really figure out a way where we can community educate ourselves and bring literacy to the table. I'm glad to be talking with young bookstore owners in this space, because we really need to ensure that we take control of our literacy and understand that the diversity that literacy is, right? So it not just be understanding math, but also being able to code switch within the different worlds that we are blessed to exist in.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not going to presume that you want to start a family. That's everyone's decision. But if you do, is that a major factor, the education, the quality of education in the city and where you want to live?
100%. I do want to start a family. And I don't know, I debate with my family and stuff a lot about this. My mom has 5 kids. And so we always talk about like where we'll be and so they can live with their cousins. And I'm always like, we're going to Ghana. I'm not going to deal with this type of stuff. And I think, you know, and my mom brings this up a lot, and education was a very important thing in our household. My mom took me and my sisters, woke up every day and took us to 3 different schools just so we wouldn't be compared to each other and we could thrive in our own different schools. And so education is the forefront. And I got to see that firsthand while taking education outside of the classroom. I took a gap year before I went to the University of Michigan. I knew like I just really wanted some life experience. But I would say, I think there was a lot of people around me, and I think this is looping the conversation back in, that were very scared, right? And they were saying like, who you think you are? Like Malia Obama, you taking a gap year, you don't need to be doing that. And God is good, and needless to say, I met President Obama in my gap year, right? So I think it's like being able to listen to what's in your heart. But at the end of the day, you only have one shot to educate your kids, right? So you need to make the best decisions. You need to know the principals, you need to know the teachers, you need to know the other parents so you know what's going on. You know, sadly, we had a very traumatic event that happened in our neighborhood at Gumpers Elementary, and we really, you know, it's heartbreaking, right? And we understand that parents do their best to protect their children. Administration also needs to, it's a whole conversation to bring that up, but I know that I don't even want those kind of things to be happening in my child's school.
Yeah. Emily, same question in terms of what do you think should be the #1 priority of the next administration?
I think the #1 priority needs to be giving proper funding to local organizations in the city of Detroit. Because in all honesty, and like you said, I can speak candidly, I put very little faith into politicians. Historically, they have never been on the ground doing the work, and the people that's on the ground doing the work are these local organizations. They just don't have the proper funding to excel in the community. And like every time when I think of local organizations, I think of the Black Panther Party. The Black Panthers, they had their own free breakfast program. They had their own mental health clinics. They had their own ambulance services because we couldn't get service properly. And there are so many organizations, educational organizations, food organizations, given the fact that food benefits are about to be cut off on Saturday. We need to give proper funding to these churches, these soup kitchens, these Forgotten Harvests, these educational organizations, these 42 Forwards, these DHDCs, all of these organizations that can help us, because, like I said, politicians, they can't do much. They can't, in all honesty. And I will be supporting any candidate who is giving proper funding to these people on the ground.
Let me ask that question to all of you then, and I appreciate your candor there. does your generation, and I don't know if you want to speak for the entire generation, but the 6 of you here, do you have a lack of trust or respect with local leaders, thinking that they just aren't doing enough for you or your families or your loved ones? That can go to anybody.
Sometimes I think about what the role of government is. And that, I think, is the question that has really divided the nation. And that there's almost one camp that says the role of government is to support everybody and make sure that we are well. And the other camp is to say that the role of government is to make sure that evil is kept at bay. And I don't really know if, looking at politicians, if I'm necessarily thinking like, oh, this is the person who is guiding my future. This is the person to rely on. I'm almost thinking like, this is the person who is maintaining order. I think that politicians ultimately are motivated to maintain order, and that the people who are most engaged with politics are the people who are most satisfied by the current order. And so if you are somebody who is looking for change, oftentimes politics is not the first base camp. It is these local organizations, and those local organizations raise and succeed and build funding until the point where the politicians can kind of say like, oh, hey, you know, something has shifted. This is the new order. Let me maintain that. But I don't often see politicians as those first movers.
Your number one priority for the city of Detroit?
There are a couple priorities I think the next mayor should have. But one of the things I'll mention I think is all encompassing is that the next mayor must be a good partner. And they must understand that the problems in Detroit are too complex for the local government to solve alone. They have to be good collaborators and partners with community. And a good partner empowers people with the tools and resources to help them solve their own problems. In every neighborhood in Detroit, there are people who are already solving problems, creating urban gardens, small businesses, neighborhood cleanups. I have not seen the city embrace those groups as well as they should. Those who are close to the problem are close to the solution. They're already actively doing something to better their conditions. If the city could be a better partner, I think you would see neighborhoods flourish more. So being a good partner is huge. And it'll require a mayor that is innovative and creative in their problem solving. Some new ways of thinking about how this city will move forward together and not just in silos, I think how it currently is.
Interesting. Zoe?
Okay.
She's lining up.
I'm like, woo. No, everybody's answers has been super loaded and very inspirational. So it's kind of, you know, I'm like in my mind, like, whoa, where should I start?
It doesn't have to be different. If you agree, you can just say.
Yeah, I definitely agree with everybody and their perspective. I think where I would go is collaboration. You know, there's been so many different, in reference to everybody, like organizations and programs that have been the pillar of Detroit, and that's upheld Detroit even in its darkest times. I feel like in the circle of life there are highs and there's lows, and that Detroit was never dead. You know, it's never left. It's been here and it's going to continue to thrive. So in voice of collaboration, we're better together than we are separated and individual. So just bringing everybody together, and I know it sounds cliche, but it's definitely needed in this time in America, seeing where the administration is going. Just making it, I feel like if we're unified, we're better, you know, so yeah, that's what I got.
Okay, same question.
Yeah, my number one priority, I think, for the mayor to succeed is safety, and safety as tied in with freedom. I think if we're defining the opposite of safety as violence, violence is always emerging from the most restricted people, whether they be restricted physically, whether they be restricted emotionally, whether they be restricted economically or politically or socially. Violence is a reaction to restriction. So we have to think about how do we keep our communities safe and how do we keep our communities free.
Okay, last but not least.
Yeah, no, I think for me, I think there should be a deeper investment in free and safe spaces for young folks to collaborate, for them to network and to have fun. In a state that has over 140,000 young folks between the ages of 18 and 30 who are unemployed, we need more spaces, especially in Detroit being that space, for those young folks to find their aspirations and in hopes to achieve them.
The conversation about downtown Detroit versus the neighborhoods of Detroit has always been a long one, and it's, us versus them or them versus us. Do you think that narrative is still valid? Is that still a conversation? Should it be a conversation? Or do you think that things have gotten better? Anybody can answer that.
I can start. Are you going to start?
No, go ahead, bro.
So I operate Page's Bookshop, and so we're on a small business corridor in the far west side. So we are in the neighborhoods, and I've seen exactly like what the neighborhoods feel like. But I also went to Wayne State University, and so I've seen what downtown looks like. There's a difference. And there's a difference about excitement, and there's a difference in investment. I would not necessarily say that the neighborhoods are totally forgotten, but Detroit is the motor city, and my experience with downtown, honestly, like ground level, is parking. I don't necessarily feel like, as a resident of Detroit, that my mode of transportation is the most welcome getting downtown. I don't necessarily feel the most welcome. And I feel that, if you're somebody who is visiting, or if you're somebody who can afford to live and work downtown, then you have some sort of like long-term solutions. You can you can queue line. You can queue line for about 3 miles, something like that. It's very walkable. They got bike lanes and stuff like that. And I feel that if you are driving, and Detroiters are drivers, you don't feel welcome downtown.
I would go as far as to say, yes, there has been a huge divestment and somewhat of a forgotten, method, I guess, if you will, about the neighborhoods. I live and I grew up in the Puritan Schaefer community on Detroit's west side. And I've seen some of these same abandoned buildings since I was a kid. That is neglect, period. There's no way around it. That is just flat out neglect. And there are a total of 7 schools within a 1.5 mile radius of the bookstore that I own. And the kids see the same exact thing that I grew up seeing. There's a clear indicator of, what is priority when it comes to those things. We started a community garden 1 block away from this bookstore that I have in the nutrition desert. There has not been a level of investment in the city that's trying to actively solve the problems of that neighborhood. And that's the story of, I think, other neighborhoods in the city of Detroit as well.
Your generation, the Gen Zers, 20, you're all 20-ish, right? What does the city need to do to attract you? Because you're going to be the future, right? They want you to move downtown. They want you to move to the city. They want you to spend your money and raise your families and start businesses. But how do they get you to do it?
I think for me, like I said, back to my first answer, it's just the implementation of these local organizations. And in all honesty, as someone who grew up in Brightmoor, Detroit, which is not known for being the safest environment, my only, I would say, way out was being in local organizations and seeing better. And then, like, in all honesty, like my sister, she's a first generation college student. I didn't, like, if it wasn't for her, then I wouldn't have gone to college. I didn't even know what college was like until she went. And I'm pretty sure it was the local organization 482 Forward that fights for education justice was a stepping stone for her getting into college. And it's very difficult to want better if you can't see better. And that's what these local organizations are doing. They are showing you better and showing you that it can be better. And that just like goes into like the first question. Like I really want I'm supporting a mayor that is pouring in to the community and not giving false promises to the community.
I see this in a very systematic way, right? So I have a strong background in making movies, right? And so people want to move to New York City and live in a shoebox because it's romanticized, right? Marketing is such a strong core, and the things that we see visually. I'm also a photographer, right? And so a lot of times when I'm walking around my neighborhood with my camera, people assume 2 things, right? The first one is, oh, you about to go downtown and take some pictures? So there's an attachment to my neighborhood is not beautiful enough to document. And then there's a second assumption of like, oh, are you the police, right? And we think about these things, projects like Green Light Project, right? Or even just that recent case in Baltimore, correct? Where the AI mistakes some chips for a gun, right? These things are severely planned, right? Like I remember when I learned, and I hope to correct me if I'm wrong, entertainment is within the tourism department. You know what I mean? People make movies to make people live there, right? And so when we think about the tax incentives that existed in the state of Michigan to do the whole trilogy of Transformers and them being away, we have a very strong, I have a lot of feelings about the independent industry currently in the city, but I would say it's worth being invested in, and also people are gonna watch a movie before they read a book. Like media is so accessible to us, and I think that it just has to be sold. And I think that the neighborhoods are where the real stories get to be. So there's a John Singleton down the street, right? There is a Spike Lee that exists in our neighborhoods, and we really just need to be able to tell those stories and sell Detroit. And I think that we are the captain of culture, right? Like nothing started, imagine Black culture without the city of Detroit, right? And that was not downtown. That was these deep neighborhoods, right? And so I'm currently working on a project with Black Bottom Archive that explores the neighborhoods and tells stories with the neighborhoods. And so I'm really glad as far as what my sister is saying is like them got that investment so they can select people in different neighborhoods to tell the stories of neighborhoods, right? And I just think we can't really see change without creativity. We have to imagine it, we have to see it, and unfortunately we have to sell it. And I mean, New York City has been selling it for decades, right? And people will romanticize it, complain about it, and still stay.
Yeah. What are the conversations like with your peers who are not from Detroit and have not visited in terms of the perception of what Detroit is?
I can speak to that. So for me, I've kind of been in and out of different cities. I've been in and out of Detroit, been in neighborhooding cities around Metro Detroit. I've been in and out of different school districts. So for me, and to piggyback off of what she was saying, creativity is a driving force for Detroit. So for me, I'm a DJ. I've been professionally DJing for 11 years. I've done a numerous amount of events all across Michigan and Detroit, and I feel like it can be a lot. I feel like people's perspective on Detroit is diverse. It's a lot of different things. Going to different schools, being around different people, it's broadened my perception on life. Because when you know what you know, you're comfortable. When you get outside, you step outside your comfort zone, you go to different places, travel different, it makes you a better person whole, So I feel like, getting back to your question, people's perception on Detroit can be connotative, but I feel like it can also be positive. Unfortunately, I do have a handful of people that I know that, due to the narrative on media, they make it seem like, okay, maybe it's not safe. I attended a Japanese immersion school. My second language is Japanese. And a lot of the children, and their parents were like, oh, I wouldn't go to Detroit. It's violent, it's all these different things. And just being a advocate of the various communities and the different things you can do. Because we're so much more than what the media portrays us to be.
Do you think Gen Zers more so than not look at Detroit as a place they don't want to go?
Absolutely. I think as someone who I'm a proud graduate of North Carolina A&T State University, and every time I would tell somebody I'm from Detroit, they'd be like, oh. And it was like, it wasn't a good O, it was like a bad O. And they just associated me with violence and aggression. While I do think it's because of media, but I also think yesterday we were at a roundtable with James Tate, city councilman, and I told him going to an HBCU, you have Detroit Blacks and other Blacks. And I think there's, it's this level of pride that we have in our city that I realize that nobody else has. And even the fact that she got on the Lions gear. Every time you go outside the city of Detroit, someone is wearing Red Wings, Lions gear, Tigers. It's a level of pride that, although it was associated with negativity, it was vital that I didn't let that get to me. Because I know where I'm from, I know the culture and I know the history, and I know that Detroit hustle harder. It's nothing better than being from Detroit, in my opinion.
And I want to piggyback off of that. I feel like outside of the nation, internationally, a lot of people think we're the mecca of creativity. Being a DJ, people come and travel from far and wide just to be in Detroit because they feel our energy, they feel our synergy, they feel, you know, our reach, our impact. So my perspective, I feel like it has to be, I don't know, I just feel like it's kind of in the middle. Like we have people that kind of feel negatively about us and you have people that feel positively about us.
Going off that conversation then about Detroit selling itself, as you mentioned, should the city make that a priority, especially targeting your generation?
I think it should, but I think first it should embrace the people that are here first. You know, a lot of my peers who are from other cities and whatnot, they see Detroit as like this economic boom that's about to happen. They're trying to buy a property here, they're trying to get into the real estate, they're trying to open a business. They see it from a more, I don't want to say extractive, but kind of what it is. It is what it is, doing business here. And the people that are from here don't see those same opportunities sometimes or that same vision of what Detroit is going to be. So I think the city has to do a better job of telling the story to its residents about, like, no, these things are happening. Stay here, like, start a family here. But it'll take other things too to make that happen. But I think we should, but first, let's invest into the ideas and the minds here, then open it up to the rest of the world, I guess.
You had mentioned crime and safety as being a top priority, something that really needs to look into. Is that something that across the board we all kind of feel that needs to be addressed and needs to be really a top priority as well?
I mean, yeah, I agree, but I just don't know how possible it is. Like, we are still living in the effects of crack. And if you think about it, like, everything is like I was saying like earlier about how your environment affects you a lot. I didn't know anything about college until she went. And your environment, the place that you grow up around, it's all like a ploy to keep Black people at the bottom. Like, look at our communities. There's liquor stores on every corner. The situation at Gompers, that would have never happened at Grosse Pointe. And if it did, it would have been faced with immediate attention, you know? And I think everything, like, I hate to bring race into everything, but race is in everything. Like, it's all just a ploy to keep Black people poor and to keep Black people in jail. And it's very difficult to, like I said, to want better if you can't see it. Like, it's all like the things that we're seeing on our TV, the music that we're listening to, the stuff that's being marketed in Detroit isn't being marketed in Bloomfield. It's not being marketed in Grosse Pointe. And it's just all like, it's a mind. We're slaves, like, in our mind because of our environment.
So do you want the city to do something about that?
Oh, absolutely.
And what's that answer?
I have no idea. I don't know. Like, I genuinely, like, it's not that I don't have hope. It's just that when I look at or even just converse with people that grew up in marginalized communities, I guess it just goes back to local organizations, really. Because, like I said, politicians can't do much. They work for the man. They can't be in the community. They can't be grassroots organizers. They might start off as grassroots organizers, but once they get that position, all that go away. The higher you go, the worse all of this gets. And that's where we need to pour into these local organizations, these local Black organizations, these local Latinx organizations, Arab organizations, every organization that is educating the people, that is feeding the people mentally, literally. And so, yeah, I think everything just ties into to local organizations.
You're chomping at the bit over here.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I mean, in terms of safety, I think what the mayor does have the power to do is somewhat influence the other things around that make people commit crimes, if you will. The fact that our median household income in Detroit is what it is directly attached to the crime rates that we have here, right? So more opportunities, more economic opportunities. The mayor has the power to bring in partnerships, to create jobs, create opportunities, grants, funding, things of that sort. So while I don't think that they can wave a magic wand and the crime problem will be solved, they can be very strategic with the policies that they implement that make people feel whole and a decent quality of life where that's not even a thought to do certain things. I do think that is possible.
On a totally different subject, actually, it is related. I applaud your entire generation for working to remove the stigma on mental health conversations. You've all been phenomenal about making that just a normal part of everyday life. Do you think that the city can or should play a role in mental health services?
Absolutely, yes. Just as much as we might have a program for basketball at the rec centers, that should be just as normal to have programs that better the mental health of the residents in the city. It should be just as equal, in my opinion.
Okay, anybody else? Oh.
I was going to say, it feeds into everything. So in 2018, chronic absenteeism was a big thing to talk about. Why aren't kids going to school? In Brightmoor, 30% of Detroit's youth are in Brightmoor. 90% of the high school students are not going to school. And so my mother and my father, they were researching this and they realized that trauma was the biggest barrier. And so when we talk about safety, like we have so much family, and I know many people at this table can list at least on one hand how many of their friends, family members passed before 18. And crime is a really big issue, but I think we can also see this change happen in our lifetime. There has been many mayors across the country who have reduced crime rates by investing in the youth, right? And so I think that role is very critical. I do think in regards to what we plan to do with the Healing Center, it's called the JDC Health and Healing Center, and it plans to tackle the child holistically, but mainly focusing on the 0 to 5. Right? Because the brain development from 0 to 5 and the social emotional learning that is needed, it's like our schools only entertain the intellectual side of our brains, not thoroughly the creative side, the emotional side. So when you go to college and potentially you may lose somebody or you're enduring something, you need to have the emotional resilience, or even if you don't want to go to college, but you need to have the emotional resilience to push through. And so I think that more importantly, like we are being able to have these mental health conversations at these tables, but they started it at our dinner tables, right? And it's telling like our mothers, like, you should go to therapy. Or like, what are the stigmas around mental health? Or what's the stigma around telling people your business? I think, granted, it has the health system and the medical system has not always been a friend to minorities in this country. I think that a lot of people are getting into spaces where they're owning those conversations and owning those practices. So the conversation and the care is more compassionate and more empathetic. So yeah, I think that the mayor adds to it, but it starts again like in these neighborhoods, in these cross conversations, in these families, so we can realize like, it's okay to say you have an issue. Acknowledging the issue is the first step to going past it.
Yeah, I think for me, I don't have much to say. No, I was just going to say I think there should be a prioritization of whoever becomes the mayor to have a philanthropic liaison office within in the department, and then there be focuses on stuff like mental health, on economic mobility, so that there's kind of setting the guidelines for the philanthropic institutions in the city to start investing towards those specific areas. Because I think so many folks in the sector, the philanthropic sector, are just investing in small seeds and not actually putting roots down towards one issue. So I think if there was some guidance and some collaboration with the city in an intentional way, because there's already been a model within the governor's office, with the governor's philanthropic liaison's office. So that similar model could be brought to the city of Detroit.
You know, it's funny you bring that up because you've mentioned mobility, you mentioned transportation. There have been, let me rephrase that. When you compare Detroit to other large metro cities for their transportation, public transportation, and what they offer, we have made some improvements, but nowhere near what it should be. How key is transportation for you and your generation and attracting your generation?
I think it's essential in all honesty. But I also not to be a pessimist, but I don't think public transportation will ever be reliable in the city of Detroit because we are the motor city and we are the staple for Ford, GM, and Chrysler. They need, in order for them to make money, somebody gotta buy their cars, or even just like the insurance rates, it's just like exponentially high for just no reason in the city of Detroit. And so that's why it's so crazy because I was talking to someone about this. I'm like, Detroit probably would never be a New York or a Chicago when it comes to transportation because it's a money grab, in all honesty.
I think that it should be a priority. Transportation should be a priority because it's tied to affordability and cost of living. We're kind of all in that age range where we probably want to start buying a home and starting a family and those type of things. But Detroit, the cost of living is rising every single year. And she mentioned
Disproportionately to salaries.
Yeah. And she mentioned the part about car insurance. Think about, can the average 25-year-old in Detroit afford a one-bedroom apartment in Midtown and have a car here while paying Detroit insurance car rates or car insurance rates? That's all tied to the cost of living, and transportation is a part of that. So you have to think about that when you're trying to retain or attract young talent, because that's an idea. People kind of offset. They go to New York, the high rent. I don't have to have a car, so it's not too bad. But in Detroit, I got high rent and high car insurance rates. It's unattractive to someone that wants to start to build a foundation here.
I have sensed, and maybe I'm wrong, but I've sensed a little bit of frustration when we talk about what government and how government supports you. Do you all kind of feel that way, that no matter who is in that office, the city of Detroit is not there for you? Or do you think it can be?
I'm optimistic.
Okay.
I kind of think of it like I think of schools in some ways. Like, you know, certain schools were designed to fail, right? And so I don't think that, I think of it as a puzzle, right? So there are many players that adds to quality of life and adds to support. And so I think it needs to be a stronger network. So as soon as my mother starts, and then college starts, and then the government starts, you know, like it's kind of like a marathon. And so I think that government is a key part. We don't want them hindering the process, but I don't think that they are just like the answer to getting us the holistic life that we want. I think a lot of the things that people at this table are doing and speaking about with local organizations and small businesses and grassroots organizations adds to it, and like they should listen to us. But I don't know, it's really like you are a representative. You just listen and make it happen.
And I think it starts with us as well. I feel like a lot of the time people can get caught up in like people that are in the forefront or that have the spotlight, and it really starts with us. You know, I feel like if we make it a better place, eventually it goes up.
I think he said he's an optimist and I'm a realist. And like I've been saying this whole conversation, politicians, they've never done much to me. That's just my experience. But what they do with their platform matters. How much they pour into the community, that matters. What they're saying matters. Their platform matters. Their policies matter. You know, so I'm always going to support the person who has the experience and who isn't just coming in and saying, oh, I'm going to do this, and this. And you're not telling me how you're going to do this, and this. Now I'm looking at you sideways because you just giving poor people false hope and false promises. And we've had enough of that. And like, I'm honestly fed up with that. So yeah, just the more they pour into these organizations, into these communities, it will be all right.
I think that ultimately, like, democracy is Latin for the people rule. And civics and politicians, this entire system is entirely reflective of how much the people engage with it. And I think that there are definitely some barriers to engagement, whether they be de facto or de jure. But the more people come together and engage, the more that we get out with it, the more that we get out of it. And right now, it's a positive feedback loop with the more that you engage, the more it's already supporting you, the less that you even really care. And then the less that you engage, the less that it's supporting you, the less that you believe is possible. And it's so difficult to believe that something might be possible when you are seeing what is real. Like, you can, like, it's reinforced every day. This is my life. This is possible. I don't know if I can win. I don't know if I can change things, but I know that this is possible. I know that my life is possible. And transforming from what I know is possible to what I really hope, that's a really difficult motivator.
Show of hands, how many of you plan to vote next Tuesday? All right, very cool.